Hello, this is News Mongolia on Mnb World. I am Jugdrangambold. And for our top stories, Mongolia marks 75 years of human rights commitments. In the past, the Global Fund provided Mongolia with $91 million in funding. The Mongolkang concludes its run with 40,000 audience members in 14 days. For other news, stay with us. On December 9th, a historic session unfolded at the Government Palace, commemorating the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This landmark event hosted distinguished figures, including Prime Minister Oyun-Erden, government officials, and representatives from various international organizations.
The solemn occasion was attended by members of Parliament, agencies and bodies that directly report to Parliament, heads of diplomatic missions, representatives from the United Nations and its specialized agencies, and members of the National Human Rights Commission. Adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on December 10, 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a testament to the inherent value and dignity of every human being. The document proclaims unalienable rights for all, transcending geographical and social boundaries. The United Nations Interparliamentary Union, recognizing the paramount importance of safeguarding human rights, urged parliaments worldwide to take proactive measures in this direction. Since gaining full membership in the United Nations in 1961, Mongolia has ratified 294 multilateral international agreements, including 8 fundamental human rights conventions and 40 accompanying agreements. Mongolia's commitment to fulfilling these obligations is evident in its consistent efforts involving the submission of reports and the implementation of conclusions and recommendations to the United Nations and other international organizations. The Parliament of Mongolia convened this commemorative session not only to mark the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but also to acknowledge other historical milestones. The spirit of declaration reverberates in Mongolia's constitution, in which unalienable human rights find robust guarantees.
The Global Fund has been supporting projects in Mongolia for over 20 years. The project team reports that initiatives aimed at combating AIDS and tuberculosis are being implemented in phases, and significant progress has been achieved during this period.
During the last 2 decades, the Global Fund has contributed $91 million in funding to Mongolia. Additionally, a further $16 million is scheduled to be provided between 2024 and 2026. Tuberculosis testing is currently conducted exclusively at provincial centers or district hospitals in Mongolia. To address this, a nationwide initiative has been implemented to collect samples from suspected tuberculosis cases residing in remote zones and transport them to provincial centers while adhering to infection control protocols. Presently, 331 SOMs actively participate in routine sample transportation. Through this system, an average of 13,000 human specimens are transported annually, ensuring a customer-friendly care approach.
The focus of our project activities will be directed towards diagnosing the remaining 50% of cases that have not yet been diagnosed. Additionally, plans are in place to collaborate with the other partner entities, including the Ministry of Health, the Government of Mongolia, provincial and district hospitals, as well as governmental and non-governmental organizations operating in this field.
Throughout the project implementation period, 97,000 cases of tuberculosis were identified and treated. Moreover, the initiative has successfully prevented over 1 million individuals from contracting the disease. Additionally, over 700,000 people in high-risk groups have undergone preventive examinations. Due to the Global Fund-supported project, Mongolia has achieved and maintained a very low prevalence of AIDS in the population, below 0.05%, positioning it as one of the countries with excellent achievements globally. Notably, there have been no reported cases of virus transmission from mother to fetus. The Ministry of Health has effectively utilized grant funds to prevent and detect tuberculosis among thousands of citizens, leading to the implementation of various tuberculosis case services with the support of these funds. Approximately 30% of the total registered cases of HIV infection in Mongolia have been identified through this project. Presently, there are an estimated 645 individuals at risk of infection, with 367 cases or 47% having been diagnosed. Over the medium term, efforts are underway to transition towards full government responsibility for the initiatives being carried out with the financing support from the global funds.
The play A State Without a Seal, written by the esteemed poet Lauksurang, underwent a captivating adaptation by director Bator for the Mongol Khan. The adaptation graced the London Coliseum and the prestigious West End, enthralling audiences from November 17th to December 2nd, with 17 mesmerizing performances.
The play, which skillfully interweaves Mongolia's rich history, cultural tapestry, traditional arts, national dances, and vibrant costumes, drew an impressive audience of 40,000 over 2 weeks. The Mongol Khan not only showcased the immense talent and skills of Mongolian artists, but also served as a cultural showcase, transcending borders and elevating Mongolia's international profile.
This year, Mongolia and United Kingdom marked the 16th anniversary of diplomatic relations. We opened the anniversary celebration on January 23rd with Mongolian Cultural Days, and now in December, we are closing the year of events with the Mongol Khan.
This is the first time a Mongolian play was staged in London as part of the state policy on promoting Mongolia's creative industry. This project was supported by state and private organizations. We think promoting the creative arts will have a positive impact on our domestic economy and tourism. The Mongol Khan project team worked for 1 whole year to showcase this play. London's West End, known as the pinnacle of global dramatic theatre, was an illustrious stage for the Mongol Khan. The production not only captivated theatregoers but also forged stronger cultural ties between the two nations, bringing Mongolia into the spotlight. For the past 2 years, more than 200 Mongolian and international team members worked hard to bring this play to a British audience. I would like to thank our team members and everyone who has supported us during this project. I'm honored to have portrayed Queen Tzer, one of the leading roles. Thinking back on my journey, I fondly remember participating in the full cast scene during the first staging of this play at the State Academic Drama Theatre 2 decades ago. As fate would have it, in the latest staging with a different ensemble, I was given the role of Queen Tzer. The new adaptation by director Bator marks my 300th performance of this play. A magnificent portrayal of Mongolian history and artistic culture, each performance played to packed houses, prompting additional shows to meet the demand of an enchanted audience.
Please take a look at currency exchange rates provided by the Central Bank of Mongolia. Now here comes foreign news partnered with international news agencies. The head of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, warned on Sunday that Gaza's health system was on its knees and collapsing, with its capacity reduced by 2/3, even as needs have soared.
The warning comes as Israel pressed ahead with its offensive, with heavy fighting raging overnight and into Sunday across Gaza, including in the devastated north. Nearly 85% of Gaza's 2.3 million people have been displaced within the besieged territory, where UN agencies say there is no safe place to flee. Many have fled to the south after Israel ordered the evacuation of the northern third of the territory, including Gaza City, early in the war. However, UN agencies stressed there was no safe place to flee after Israel widened its offensive into the southern half of the territory in recent week.
As I have said repeatedly, I deplore the barbaric and unjustifiable attacks by Hamas on Israel on the 7th of October, which killed more than 1,200 people. I'm appalled by reports of gender-based violence during the attacks and by the mistreatment of hostages. I'm relieved that 114 hostages have now been released, and I repeat my call for the remaining hostages to be released. I well understand the anger, grief, and fear of the Israeli people following the horrific attacks 2 months ago. I also understand the anger, grief, and fear of the people of Gaza, who had already suffered through 16 years of blockade and are now enduring the destruction of their families, their homes, their communities, and the life they knew.
With the war in its third month, the Palestinian death toll in Gaza has surpassed 17,700, the majority women and children, according to the Ministry of Health in the Hamas-controlled territory. The ministry doesn't differentiate between civilian and combatant deaths. The war began after Hamas and other Palestinian militants stormed into southern Israel on October 7th, killing some 1,200 people and capturing around 240, over 100 of whom were released during a week-long ceasefire late last month. In response to the attack, Israel launched an air and ground war that has killed thousands of Palestinians, mostly civilians, and forced some 1.9 million people to flee their homes. Tedros said he deplored the barbaric, unjustifiable attack by Hamas and had been appalled by reports of gender-based violence during the incursion.
Single every day.
Hundreds of opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party supporters protested on Sunday to mark International Human Rights Day, as the country gears for a general election on January 7 that the opposition says should be held under a non-partisan caretaker government.
The party led by former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia is boycotting the election, leaving voters in the South Asian nation of 166 million with little choice but to re-elect Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina Zawahiri League for fourth consecutive term. At Sunday's protest in front of the National Press Club in downtown Dhaka, opposition activists said they don't think a fair and free election can take place under Hasina's watch. The gathering took place weeks after a massive opposition rally on October 28th turned violent. The party's decision to boycott the polls comes amid a months-long crackdown that has reportedly seen hundreds of opposition politicians jailed and critics silenced, an allegation authorities have denied. After the October 28th rally, authorities arrested thousands of party leaders and activists, including Secretary General Mirza Fakhrul Islam Alamgir. Many others have gone into hiding, and hundreds have been convicted by courts on charges of violence and subversive acts that the opposition says are politically motivated. By arresting, killing, abducting, and passing guilty verdicts, this autocratic regime is moving towards another rigged election, says BNP leader Mustafizul Islam Babul. New York-based Human Rights Watch, in a report last month, put the number of arrested opposition activists at 10,000 since October 28 and said that at least 16 people, including 2 police officers, died during the period of violence.
French President Emmanuel Macron pledged to protect the rights of women and the LGBTQ community on Sunday in a speech to mark the anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights at the palace, where the decree was signed 75 years ago.
Macron addressed an audience at the Palais de Chaillot in Paris, where the United Nations General Assembly approved the landmark declaration in 1948. The president reiterated France will enshrine abortion rights in the Constitution at a time when women's freedoms were being challenged. He said a battle to protect people from discrimination on the grounds of their sexual orientation was far from won. Macron concluded by underlining the need for the declaration 75 years on, as well as its extreme fragility.
Women's freedom that we somehow thought were impossible to be rolled back are being challenged by political movements, by leaders who come to power, by jurisprudence that changes according to political balances. That's why I've made a commitment to fight this battle, and that's why France is proud to set an example by enshrining in its constitution a woman's freedom to have a voluntary interruption of pregnancy. This freedom will be enshrined in our constitution.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was born of the never-again sentiment among political leaders after 2 world wars and the Holocaust. On top of the UN Charter, the document that founded the United Nations in 1945, countries decided to draw up what the UN calls a roadmap to guarantee the rights of every individual. It isn't a treaty and isn't legally binding in itself, but the principles it sets out have been incorporated into many countries' laws, and it is viewed as the basis for international human rights law. It is recognized as having inspired and paved the way for more than 70 human rights treaties at global and regional levels, according to the United Nations. The 75th anniversary comes as human rights are challenged in the war between Israel and Hamas, Russia's war in Ukraine, internal conflicts in Myanmar and Sudan, and in a host of other places and situations. Colorful lights and glittering trimmings decorated the Christmas fair in Kyiv on Sunday, as residents prepared to celebrate their second Christmas after Russian forces invaded Ukraine in February 2022. Temperatures way below zero didn't stop children and adults alike from gathering on Sunday to enjoy the afternoon and the ice skating rink, to enjoy on a carousel ride with their parents. People welcomed the festive atmosphere even if it was somewhat restrained. Kyiv resident Elmira Rustemova wasn't sure whether it was the right time to have fun given the sacrifices Ukrainians have made to uphold normalcy for others during Russia's ongoing attacks. A soldier currently in rehabilitation told the Associated Press he was glad to see that people were still able to enjoy the Christmas spirit.
Now here comes the weather forecast for the world's major cities. Alright, that's all for today. Thank you for staying tuned. We'll see you next time with more news and updates. Have a good day.